Hey, hello, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of getting students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I work at IE Business School Publishing, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Well, today we have Manuel, and Manuel, he is a lead gamification designer at Fractal Mind, and his background is mostly in software development and analysis, but now, he knows better about gamification. And for the past 6 years, he's been one of the main voices of gamification in Portugal, and has had the luck of spreading the fun in domains like e-learning, employee engagement, sales teams, and ideation since then, with some of the top banking and retail companies in Portugal. He's also a design thinking and gamification design coach, has co-organized 2 editions of the Novabase Gameshifters, which is Portugal's biggest gamified ideathon. And last but not least, he's a gamer, scout leader, an aspiring blogger, writer, a musician in denial, and can hit a low C in the morning. So Manuel, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, make it so.
Is there anything I missed from that interview? Any personal details you want to give?
No, I think you covered it all.
Fantastic. So, Manuel, we would like to know, first off, what does a regular day with Manuel look like?
I'm a bit of a habit nerd, so when you talk about regular days, I'm all about routines and stuff like that. Curiously, though, I'm not an adopter. I'm a fan, but not an adopter. I've tried to get routines, but I never seem to get it down. At work, it's a bit all over the place. So from the moment I get to work, I can be doing proposals in a moment, and then overseeing the development team, participating in brainstormings, and even tinkering with the small tools that we use in our gamification framework. I mostly do a lot of stuff, and since I'm in the gamification design team, I'm the one with the technical background. I tend to do a lot of the high-level technical design too, so it can be pretty broad a day with me.
That's fantastic, Manuel. That's fantastic. Now I want to shift a bit, and I wanted you to tell the engagers, the audience, to tell us a story of something that you would like to call your favorite failure when creating games or gamification. That kind of thing that later led you to learning and set you up for future success.
Favorite failure? Well, there's one. I'm not sure if I call it a favorite failure, but it sure was a failure that prompted me to learn a lot of stuff. In my previous company, we did something called an ideas. And it was supposed to be our first gamified solution for ideation processes. So for internal ideation in a company.
Sorry, what does NID stand for?
N the letter N and ideas. And it was supposed to be a mobile app for ideation.
Mobile app for ideation. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And it was supposed to be like a crowdsourcing ideation inside the company, like promoting entrepreneurship, because we knew that we had a lot of intellectual material, because we knew we were a 3,000 strong company, so there was a lot of people to give ideas for new projects, for new products, and the potential was there, but all of us were developers, so we quickly went from trying to solve the problem to creating a lot of instead of prototyping and quickly prototyping a couple of mechanics and just working it out and trying it out, we quickly went all over the place, and we were developing Android and iPhone apps, and the testing phase was already with 2 almost done mobile apps, and then we figured out, well, nobody knows that this exists, so we didn't work with the communication stage wasn't well designed, and even the pilot phase of the project went a little, it sidetracked a little. So what we learned from it is we needed to fail earlier and fail cheaper. So, yeah, we spent a lot of hours on that project, and then we realized, well, some things weren't as on the mark, and we probably should have discovered that early on. So that was a failure of ours, and it certainly taught us, at least it taught me, to really try out as soon as you have an idea that you need to validate with your users. You need to make, like, even if it's just a paper prototype, and get your users in a room and just work out the kinks, and then you invest in development, and then you invest in all the time and all the work.
Yeah, Amy Jo Kim is like huge on this whole iteration stuff. Yeah. But it's, as a developer, which is actually my background. I was born, so to speak. I graduated as a computer science, computer engineering major. One of the main things that was going on then was I don't know how to, I'm not sure if in English it's the same way to say it, but the cascade model, you know, that you went from one stage to the next, the next. And that point was exactly, at least from my point of view, what I saw then was that they were shifting towards the iterations of having something small that works and checking if it works, that it works well. At that point was only checking that it works. Of course, now it's a bit deeper, and if you're developing something like that, you not only check that it functions, like properly functions, but you check that it's appropriate for your users, that the market is asking for that. So there's many more things to consider now. And I think for me that would be the main learning that I would take from your story, Manuel. Is there anything else you want to point out quickly from your story?
It's maybe you should have other people that are not developers working on the project, because we got so excited about the technology and the ways we were working around some difficulties we encountered that we forgot about the more important part, that was getting our early adopters and getting them on board and stuff like that.
Yeah, diversity in that sense. Diversity is not only about having people from different races. It's actually getting people who think differently. And of course, if everybody has a similar profile, it's hard to find somebody who thinks differently, or a group of people who think differently from the others.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, Manuel. And we would like to once again shift 180 degrees. And instead of going for your favorite failure, we would like to go to somewhere where you actually faced a massive challenge then, and something that you feel really proud of. Something that you could say you faced that challenge and you went straight on and you solved it using game thinking or gamification.
So I guess there are probably two big challenges that I faced. One is a bit more personal, that I was a developer, and at some point I thought I don't want to be a developer anymore. And at the same time I discovered gamification, and I thought to myself, so how can I use gamification to end up doing gamification as a profession? And so I sort of gamified my way up the jobs. Even inside the company, I was able to create, and you have to, maybe if you when you know about Portuguese culture, it's not that easy to tell your boss, well, I want to stop doing what I've been doing for the past 6 years and start doing something that you're not sure if it's going to work. But I was lucky enough to have people that believed in at least they believed in me, and I was able to really design the path and grind all the way to the minor bosses and then the bigger bosses, and then getting up to that final boss where I got to create my own gamification team. It was just me, but still I was doing gamification.
You created your own job description, no?
Yeah, I created my own job description. So, and I really, at the moment, I wasn't thinking about gamifying the process. But when I look back, I think that I really just I made it into an RPG. So there was this there was this clear goal that I had to, this quest that I was on, and I grinded all the way to where I wanted to be.
That's fantastic.
That for me personally, it was a really interesting way of using game thinking to solve the problem.
And it led you to being today actually on a team, which is not just from a big company, but now you're instead explicitly just designing gamification. Is that right?
Yeah. That's funny, because the moment I got to that sweet spot, I thought to myself, well, maybe I should go to another company. Now that I've created my own job description, I need to fully be able to pursue it. And then that's when I shifted to Fractal Mind, and now we work mainly with gamification. So from job description to a whole company around gamification. So that was really a really interesting challenge for me to solve. But professionally, I would have to say that the last project that I did before changing companies was probably the biggest challenge that I faced, and I was really proud of the things we were able to solve. We had, so again, we were a 3,000 strong company, and when you try and mess with HR in a company of this size, they're going to beat you up, and they're going to be resistant to change. And we knew that we wanted to mix things up, and I was lucky to have a partner in this challenge, Pedro, and he was actually at Gamification Europe showcasing this project, and it was interesting because we wanted
this is something that I can link to the show notes. I have a full post having all of the videos to every single one, but in your talk I can also put in the show notes. I can put the link to Pedro, so if anybody wants to watch that video, it will be in the corresponding episode of Manuel Pimenta.
Of course.
So
yeah, of course, he does a great job at explaining what we did there. And yeah, we had that challenge of changing the way, changing the employee experience in a company of that size. And with that diversity of job descriptions, so you have developers, analysts, testers, project managers, people that are more commercially oriented. So we had a lot of different job descriptions. We had a lot of information from HR regarding competencies, skills. So we had to mix all of this and try and gamify it. And the pilot was really long. We did a year-long pilot with about 30 people, but it was so fun because the hardships were so enjoyable. When we threw out another feature and everybody started to ask for more, as if it was a given that it should be more complex and it should have more features. We're like, okay, it's annoying, but it's so good that people are so engaged that they want more of this new thing that we're trying out. So we were very proud of what we did there, and I'm so happy for them that they're continuing with the project and working into the company. So I think it's now in two areas of the company, and it has more than 100 people on it. So the pilot is growing in a steady but sure pace. So it was a big challenge, and we were really happy and proud of solving it.
So engagers, as you can see, gamification is something that we focus very much on how to apply it to educations, because we're convinced that there's many things that can be changed around the educational world using gamification, but there's also many places where you can use it. As Manuel was describing, he used it for his own personal life. He shifted his job towards what he actually wanted to, and he used the gamification. And he also helped the company where he was working he helped them do some certain changes in their culture as well, some changes inside the company. Once again, using gamification. Think that it's something that you can use in your class. It's something that you can use with your fellow professors or teachers, and you can do for many, many things that you can imagine. So it's something that's worth taking a look at, certainly.
Yeah.
Manuel, the next thing I want to know, and the engagers are really interested in, what do you follow? Is there any sort of process that you use when you get into gamification?
Yeah, sure. We have a process at Fractal Mind it's a lot similar to what we use at Novabase too. So we're pretty aware that given that it's user centered, it should all start with the users. But given that customers are are the people who pay. So the first step that we do is really get into a meeting with all the key stakeholders and just listen. And we do a lot of active listening, and we challenge them, and we throw some concepts around just to see what are the main goals of a project and where are they trying to achieve. We even do some work in breaking down the goals and trying to show them that what they were trying to achieve is not exactly that, it's another thing. So that's where we start, and then we do something we call the divergence, an ideation workshop. So we do a day-long workshop with the people that are going to be the players of the solution. So we get about 20 to 30 people in a room, and we teach them gamification. So because we're really believers in getting the word out there, and we also involve them in the process of creating that solution. So they end up building the personas that are going to be used in the process. Afterwards, of course, we do a bit more work, and we make them more robust. But a lot of the work that is done by the people that are going to use the platform after getting some training in gamification. And then they just ideate for all their lives worth. And that first ideation workshop is where we get the bulk of the ideas that we are then going to use to design the solution. And after that, we do more of a convergence workshop where we've done some work around user journeys, and we've highlighted the main user journeys for the early adopters. And then we get, again, the users into a room, and we want them to look at the user journeys and validate the user journeys, and then figure out what game mechanics they would use for each moment in the user journey. And again, according to the personas that they identified, what game mechanics they would use for each moment to convince the users to perform the desired action. And after that, we do a bit of process of consolidating this information and working it all into a clear vision of what the project is going to become. And then there's a moment of go or no go. So the first thing that we tell our customers is that we're not going to tell you it's going to be 30K, 40K, 50K. We're going to do this process, and we're going to give you a vision of what we're going to build, what we want to build, what we think should be the solution. And if they give the go ahead, we then go into the trenches and do all the detailed design process, creating the game economies, and identifying all the actions, all the mechanics we're going to use, all the feedback mechanics and incentives. And then we quickly try and prototype with rough wireframes, again, getting the users into the process. We're really believers in co-creation. We've done this with design thinking, and we've done this with gamification. And co-creation is really powerful, because the first win state for our users is not the moment where they get a win state in the platform, is the moment where they get the notification that the platform is coming out, and they think, yeah, I helped build that. So that's their first win state. And that's really powerful for us. And I think we get a lot of insight from doing it that way.
Thank you very much for that process. I mean, it's actually very interesting the way that you approach this. And I was, as you were speaking, of course, I was paying very close attention, but I was also thinking about how could this be applied to education? And I think it could fit perfectly. I mean, imagine that you're in a classroom, and of course you've been teaching maybe for several years, and you want to change things, you want to shake it up. And who best to test your assumptions? Who best to say some things that could be fun for them, that could be interesting, that could be engaging, than your own students? I mean, imagine, instead of just sitting by yourself in your house, doing all this from scratch all by yourself and then testing it and maybe maybe things are not the way you expected, and the users don't behave the way you expected them. But having them involved in that co-creation, imagine how powerful that could be for how you design your class. I'm not saying that they're going to decide what you teach them or not, but maybe there's many things that they could be involved in, and even that could be something that they could participate in. Maybe the order of the ways that you do things, because we know that the educational system is very rigid, very stiff in many things. But there's still many things that, even with all that, the way that the system works, there's many things that we can still do. So thank you once again for that, Manuel. That was pretty interesting. And now we want to go to the second part of the interview, and here what we always look for are the quick tools, tips, and tactics, or maybe advice that can be used maybe directly tomorrow or in the medium term, but it's something that is actually not like the first part where we had the story, but more for quick tools and tactics. So the first question I wanna make you is for you to tell us what is something that you think any gamification project could benefit from, a best practice.
I'd have to go with a good grasp on the personas and the player types, because it's so easy to just pile on the mechanics. And if you just really get to know the users, even if you just use 2 or 3 mechanics, you're much more likely to do the right thing. And of course, a lot of mischief. I'm a big fan of humor, and I think you can never go wrong with humor in communication and the solution itself. For me, it's my personal best practice.
Fantastic. That's great. So humor and learning the users as well as you can.
Yeah.
So we would like to know also, what is your favorite game?
My favorite. I'm a big fan of Football Manager. I've been playing Football Manager, I think, forever, at least as far as my memory goes. But I've also played a lot of Japanese RPGs, and now I think I'm playing Fire Emblem Heroes on my mobile, because it's the one place that I can get the time to play. But I'd probably go with Football Manager. At least the hours tell the story.
That's fantastic. Manuel, is there anybody that you would like to listen to interviewed in Professor Game?
Sure. I would really love to hear some insights from my colleague Rui Cordeiro, because he's got a 20-year background in companies like Activision Blizzard and Gameloft, and now he's doing gamification. So it's always a fun story to see someone that transitioned from the game medium to the gamification medium. And of course, Tim Ferriss. Why not? I'm curious. I'm curious. The guy that has a handle on anything. What's his insights? What are his insights on gamification? I'd be pretty curious to know that.
I'm amazed. I do listen to his podcast every once in a while. There's several things about him that amaze me. Like he always almost brags about how quickly he can learn a language. So I'm sure that if you take a look at the process that he uses, I know he spoke about it once. I'm probably going to look for it now, thinking about it. It's probably a very gamified process, the way he uses to learn those things. So it would be very interesting if I get a chance to get him on an interview. I would also like to have a chance to speak with him for maybe 10 to 15 minutes before, and I'm sure just giving him the jazz of what this whole gamification thing is about, I'm sure he would have his take, definitely.
Yeah, sure.
The next question and the next thing that we would like to know is there any book that you would like to recommend to the engagers?
Any book? Well, at least in gamification, I think that there are a lot of books on gamification, and from more direct approaches, things like Yukai's book and Gabe Zickerman's books, really about gamification. But for me, I think the most important one was Drive by Dan Pink, and mostly because he really summarized the important tidbits about psychology and the things that you really, not getting really deep into the concepts, but the things that you really need to understand in order to be able to use gamification to change behaviors. But also, I think there's a lot of fiction that's useful when you're thinking about empathy, because I think empathy is a big part of what we do, and even more so in education. And I think
fantastic. Yeah.
Authors like Patrick Rothfuss and Neil Gaiman, the way they play around with words, and the way that they can get really deep into your emotions is something that we could learn from and really help us build the narratives. Narratives are such an important tool. I think I would recommend it even just for fun.
Manuel, what is your superpower in gamification?
My superpower, I think it's my enthusiasm, maybe, because at least people tell me that it's contagious, and the way I talk about it, the way I talk about gamification, and the way I speak at conferences, people come to me afterwards, and it's kind of a double-edged thing, because I want them to come out to me and say, wow, that was really inspiring, I learned a lot of things, but they normally tell me, wow, you're so enthusiastic, it was so contagious. Okay, that's good. Yeah. I think that's my superpower.
Fantastic. So now I want to make you the question that everybody's expecting, which is a random question. I'm going to pick it right now randomly from the list that we have. And the idea is that you can, of course, maybe it could be a bit too deep and you want to take it broadly, or maybe it's too broad and you want to just go deep into a specific part of the question. So please feel free to approach it as you believe is best.
Yeah.
So this is a physical education teacher. He says, my students have, as usual, different skill levels and preferences for this subject, especially when it comes to sports. Some are more popular, some less. I mean, in Portugal, you would say, of course, that football is the most popular, right?
Yeah.
So my question, that's what this professor is saying. My question is for those less popular with students. How can I get them to be more present? He's saying that some examples might include track running, long jumps, and even the warm-up and stretching that is so important in physical education for kids to understand that it's an important thing. So is there any way that you would approach this problem as a physical education teacher, Manuel, that could help him using gamification to improve his engagement with students?
Yeah, sure. Of course, the first answer that comes to mind is it depends on the students, because it always does, and the demographics are so important. But at least being a scout leader, I think that's something that we've learned from early on in the movement, is that it's okay to tell them why it's important to do those sports too, and if they understand how those different sports impact on their development, and even from physical development to intellectual development and teamwork, and I think it's okay to let them be the mature ones and do the choices and have the autonomy to decide on what they're going to do. But you should always give them the information that they need to make the choice. And I think that's something in a broader scope. I think that's something that's really missing from education. And surprisingly, in Boy Scouts, we've known it for more than 100 years, is that children will choose what they want to do. You should just show them the options and make sure that they understand the options, because if they're the ones making the choice, it's so much more powerful. And again, this is not like a gamified recipe, but of course, with children, autonomy is always a good bet, and making sure they understand the reasons for doing things, not just because you tell them to. And then letting them choose. And if they still choose football, that's okay. But at least they know why should they be choosing other sports. And even if they fail, it's also okay, because they're going to learn while they're failing, and they're going to learn, okay, so maybe I should be doing some track running, because then I'm going to be faster at football, or maybe I should do the stretches, so the next time I won't get injured so fast. Yeah. And it's trial and error. Trial and error is such a great tool.
Fantastic. There's certainly many things, and when you were talking about that, I remembered I'm not sure which book it was, when they say that even when you have giving choice, even if it's saying, well, do you want to do soccer today and track running next week, or track running this week and soccer next week. That small choice, as you say, gives children the choice, and they feel empowered, and they know that they did it because they chose to. So that's, even those small tweaks and twitches, and telling them the reasons why all these things are important, it certainly can make a huge difference. Yeah. So Manuel, we've reached the end of the interview. I just want to ask you if you have any final piece of advice for our listeners, especially those who have never used gamification before with their learners. How can we connect with you? And then we'll say game over.
Okay. So quick advice, just try it. It seems a lot at the start, but once you get your hands dirty, it's not that much of a mountain to climb, and fail fast and fail cheap.
Then finally, how can we connect with you? And that's it.
Well, I'm mostly on Facebook, but I'm also pretty present on Twitter and LinkedIn. I think you're going to link it in the show notes.
Definitely.
But it's social media. It's a good bet to get in touch with me.
Okay, fantastic. I think I remember you have an interesting Twitter user. It's something like Whiskey Jack or something like that.
Yeah, it's Whiskey Jack from the great books by Stephen Erickson.
There you go. So that's it. Thank you very much, Manuel. Thanks for your time. Thanks for all your advice, all the knowledge that you brought forth for the engagers, and it's game over. Hey, engagers. Thank you for listening to Professor Game Podcast. If you want more details of this interview with Manuel Pimenta, then go to professorgame.com/podcast/018, because this is episode 18. There you can also subscribe, and that way we can be in contact, and you will have exclusive access to opportunities that Professor Game might have for you. Hey, and before you go on to your next mission, would you like to know how gamification works in Turkey? Well, then listen to the next episode of Professor Game with Altu Yilmaz. See you there!